Let me share a thought. First of all, how was the quiz? Was it fair?
All the questions forwarded.
Okay. Good news you had the overbook.
We overwrite.
This is from Elder Marion G. Romney. He said this. He says, when earth life is over and things appear in their true perspective, we shall more clearly see and realize what the Lord and His prophets have repeatedly told us, that the fruits of the gospel are the only objectives worthy of life's full efforts. Their possessor obtains true wealth in the Lord's view of values. I conceive the blessings of the gospel to be of such inestimable worth that the price of them must be very exacting. And if I correctly understand the Lord, what the Lord has said on the subject, it is. The price, however, is within reach of each of us, because it is not to be paid in money or in any of the world's goods, but in righteous living. What is required is wholehearted devotion to the gospel and unreserved allegiance to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. There can be no reservation. We must be willing to sacrifice everything. In self-discipline and devotion, we must demonstrate to the Lord that we are willing to serve Him under all circumstances. When we have done this, we shall receive an assurance that we shall have eternal life in the world to come. Then we shall have. Some people think peace in this world comes from money. If the Lord's good, it's good. It comes from doing the things that we should. Okay. Let me just share one little tool. You know, when it comes to being able to do those risk-adjusted returns that we talked last week, would it be nice to have a little tool you could just put in your ticker? You could put in your asset class, and it would actually tell you how to do that. Again, this is how boring I am. This is what I spend time on. The downside of this is you have to have access to a Bloomberg terminal. Some of you do. Some of you are Bloomberg certified. Anyone want to give me a ticker and an asset class? In the companies you were analyzing? Go ahead, Jack.
I just got a ticker NKE for Nike.
Oh no, that's an individual.
Okay, so you want to?
It actually works, but I prefer to show you guys that.
So I know I'm guessing.
BTI.
Pardon me?
Vanguard. BTI.
BTI. So that's, again, it's the total stock market ETF. But do you want to see how that has done versus, let's do large cap, which would be the S&P. So look at this, 10 years it's outperformed, 5, 3, and 1 it's underperformed. So what does that mean? Does that mean large caps have outperformed small caps, or small caps have outperformed long term over the last 3 to 5 years? So this is a total stock return fund. So over 10 years, it's outperformed. So does that tell you small caps have outperformed large caps? The answer is yes. The last 1, 3, and 5, it's underperformed. So it's done it and large caps have done better over the last 3 to 5 years. You can see standard deviation, a little bit more risk, a little bit more return. So it's outperformed on the Sharpe ratio, underperformed on our 10-year, underperformed 5-year, and 3 and 1 is underperformed. But we kind of tell that stuff. But it's a nice little tool. I'll make it available. I'll make it available a little bit later once I clean it up. Okay, today we're going to start our retirement planning section. Now realize that we're going to take 3 days to do this. Today we'll spend upon retirement planning basics. So anything on kind of the basics, how do we work it, how do you know if you're on track? Then Wednesday what we'll do is we'll spend time with qualified and individual retirement plans. So basically business, small, and individual retirement plans as well. And then a week from today what we'll do is we'll spend on Social Security. So as we go through there, if you have any questions, write them down, and then we can address them on the days that we talk to those topics. So today is not just a single day. Realize that my purpose today is to scare you, and I think I'll do a pretty good job. It's not very hard. But to scare you into realizing how important it is to prepare for retirement. So here's our retirement planning section, your retirement goals. How many years do you retire? What age do you want to retire? How much will you need at retirement? How much do you now have? How much you save annually to reach your goals? And you'll use retirement planning spreadsheet number 6. We'll actually do that in class. And I'd like you to include a copy of your Social Security statements. Nice thing is we can go online and get those. Your action plan. What are your strategies for your accumulation, retirement, and distribution stages of retirement? Too many people just think about retirement as something off in the future. What I want you to realize is that you need to have strategies for the accumulation, which is between now and when you retire. Strategies for when you retire. So how are you going to take the funds that you have at retirement? And then also strategies for your distribution or your decumulation stages. And then what are your preferred investment vehicles? And so we'll kind of spend some time there. Okay. So let me start with a little video. Here's a question. How are we doing as a nation? Are we pretty well prepared for retirement? This is something from the Deseret News. It says a recent survey shows that more than a third of all Americans have failed to save a single dollar to live on after they finish working. Among 65-year-olds, 14% have no savings, and more than half of the people who are or near past retirement age have insufficient savings. The bottom line here is a large number of people face the prospect of living out their years with income close to or below poverty. Scary thought. There may be a number of reasons why. Any ideas why? Why that's the case? Why are so few people saving for retirement?
False impressions about the government and Social Security and other things.
So thinking that government and Social Security will be enough. Was Social Security ever meant to be all your retirement? No, it was meant to be like about 37% of that. Far too many people are beyond the point of being able to catch up, and that includes many still in their prime years. More than half of all U.S. workers will need to immediately begin saving 15% of annual household income in order to live in retirement with an income of about 70% of what they currently live with. What do you think the chances are of that? 15% of their retirement income. What do I tell you to save? 1. So at least I'm in the ballpark. I actually saw this advertisement in Money Magazine, and it said you should be saving 15% for retirement and 5% for short-term goals. There's slim hope that that's going to happen. Research has documented an attitudinal shift toward the sense of futility about saving in the 1980s and 1990s. And that shows a majority lack confidence that putting money into savings instruments will bring necessary returns. It says why many are burdened by large loan debt. A lot of people age 65 and older are facing that reality now and not as a matter of choice. The situation should serve as a wake-up call. As for government policy, there's not that much we can be done. Not much that can be done. Keeping entitlement programs solvent is enough of a challenge. Expanding them in any way is not in the cards. So the final paragraph says this. It says, but mostly the burden is up to the individual. It's easy to live in the present, but an essential component of financial responsibility is to plan for the future. People may have decided their present expenses are such they can't afford a savings plan. The question they should ask is whether they can afford the consequences or not. Sometimes we ask the wrong questions. So let's start with a quiz. So this is a Wall Street Journal quiz from 2013. Number 1, research by Fidelity Investments recommends that workers should aim to save what multiple of their ending salary at age 67 in order to meet basic income needs in retirement. So if you're making $100,000, what's the multiple of that year-end salary you should be saving? So 4, 8, 6, 10. Well, I think it's 10 plus. The Fidelity recommended 8 times. We'll read another Wall Street Journal article that recommends 12 times. And if you can be 15 to 20, you're doing better. 2, Popular rule of thumb states that retirees will need 70 to 80% of their pre-retirement income in later life. Some of the best research into replacement ratios by Hewitt and Georgia State University have found that a good benchmark is 65%, 75, 85, 95%. So this is what percent of your pre-retirement income do you need to have a good retirement? 85% is what it is. Again, if you can do a little better than that, you're doing good. What percentage of surveyed workers aged 55 plus said they or their spouse have tried to calculate how much they will need to save to live comfortably in retirement? So what percent of people, this is 55 and above, tried to calculate what they'll need in retirement? 34, 44, 54, 64. 54. 1 in 2. 50. Over half the people haven't even calculated how much they'll need. Let's move on. What percentage of U.S. households are at risk of not having enough savings to maintain their living standards at retirement? 33, 43, 53, 63. This says 53, but I think it's more than that. Here's another question. A 65-year-old couple retires in 2013. How much will they need to cover medical expenses throughout their retirement? 100,000, 140, 180, 220,000. This is just medical expenses. Right, $220,000. Let's go on to savings and investments. What percentage of participants in defined contribution savings plans, including 401ks, contribute the maximum amount allowed each year? 5, 15, 25, 35. So what percent, what's the maximum allowed this year? 18,000. What's the percentage that contribute that maximum amount? It is. It's 5%.
That's a lot.
Okay, let's go on a little bit. What percentage of households age 65 to 74 carry household debt and credit cards? 21, 31, 41, and 51. 41%. More than 10 have debt going into retirement. Hey, listen to this one here, because Social Security is very tricky. Which of the following statements about Social Security benefits is not true? A lower earning spouse can claim a benefit based on his or her own earnings record at age 62, and then switch to 50% of higher earning spouse benefit when the latter claims Social Security. B, a person of full retirement age who is eligible for a spousal benefit and his or her own retirement benefit may choose the spousal benefit and switch to his or her own benefit at a later date. C, a person who reaches full retirement age can claim and suspend his or her benefit, enabling that person's spouse to begin collecting benefits. D, a person who lives to their average life cycle expectancy will receive about the same amount in lifetime benefits, whether he or she first claims Social Security at age 62, age 70, or age 80. A, B, C, or D. Actually, A is false. And I won't go over that again, but can you get a sense on the detail on Social Security? True or false, the Social Security program is going broke? Actually, it's false. At the moment, benefits and expenses exceed taxes. This is 2013. I think through next year, that'll be the case too. And after that, it won't. Collected another non-interest income. In short, more money is going out than is coming in. As a result, starting in 2033, the government will be able to pay only about 75% of program costs. Troubled, clearly bankrupt. So we're getting a sense on where we are. Let me share one more thing to kind of put the need into perspective. Craig Merrill and David Babel, Craig Merrill at BYU, they put together an article called Investing Your Lump Sum at Requirement. And in it they talk about 5 different forces that are having a huge impact. And here's the point. It says retirees must take strategic action in the deployment of their accumulated savings and funds as they begin retirement. 5 forces are converging upon Americans And some have called the perfect storm, others the tsunami wave that is about to engulf us from all sides. The best we can do is organize our own finances in such a way that we can provide for ourselves, because there isn't anything you can do to stop these converging forces. Force number one, the decreasing levels and importance of Social Security benefits. Relative to the benefits provided to our parents, people currently in their working years will receive much lower return on their Social Security contributions. So we're going to have less compared to our parents. Number two, the demise of defined benefit plans. Over the last 15 years, there's been only one new pension program of any size initiated in the U.S. The number of pension plans in the U.S. peaked at 175,000 in 1983 and has since declined to less than 25,000. Right now, it's probably less than 15. While much of the reduction is due to the elimination of small and medium plans, some of the largest pension programs have also been discontinued, closed to new membership, or frozen to unemployment. About 30% of the remaining pension programs plan to close within the coming 2 years. And in fact, the risk of retirement has been shifted away from the employer and placed upon the shoulders of the employee. 3, the aging of baby boomers. Beginning last year, the first members of the largest generation in American history turned 60. I'm a baby boomer. And leaving their jobs and entering the retirement force, the boomers, as this generation is called, will continue to exit the workforce for another 20 years, constantly constituting over 20% of the U.S. population and 47% of all households. They will become dependent upon Social Security, retirement plans, and any accumulated assets. So what does that tell you? Are they going to be putting money in or taking money out? Taking money out. 4, the emergence of post-boomers. Generations X, born between 1965 and 79, and Y, born between 1980 and 2001, will be burdened not only with the responsibility of providing for their own future retirement and health needs, but also with supporting the Social Security and Medicare costs of the boomers. The net effect of this is there will soon be many more people draining funds from the Social Security system, with far fewer people contributing to it. In 2006, there were 7.2 persons between the age of 18 and 65 for each person over 65. Within the next 23 years, this ratio is projected to drop to 3.7. According to the Census Bureau. So remember, Social Security, is that where you put money like in a 401k and then you get that money out? Or is it a pass-through account? So money that you guys pay right now is passed on through to current children. And 5, the increasing longevity of the American population. Life expectancies who reach age 65 are the most relevant for analysis. When Social Security began monthly payments in 1940, the number of months you could expect to receive benefits for those of us who reach 65 has increased by roughly 50% for men and women. Coupled with the fact that when Social Security was instituted, the average person did not live past age 65. Increased longevity has placed a tremendous burden upon the retirement system. When considered together with the decreasing yields from bonds and lower returns from stocks in recent years, these forces spell disaster for those who do not take more prudent financial measures to prepare for what is becoming the major financial risk of the 21st century, living too long. Okay. So now that I've sufficiently scared you, now let's talk about retirement. Because it's really important. If you don't do it, who will? So let's talk about retirement planning. Really, it's just 3 questions. 1, how much do you need at retirement? What's that a function of?
When you retire.
When you retire, kind of the salary you're needing at retirement. Other factors.
How much you put away?
How much you put away. So, also it's a function of our goals. It's a function of, my wife has a goal. Every year she wants to visit every grandkid. So we've just kind of planned that into the analysis. It's a function of our goals. It's a function of our lifestyle.
I mean, it depends a lot on when you die. My grandpa is 101, so I don't think he planned on that. Right? Okay. But if he died 15 years ago, it would have been a lot easier.
Yeah. So you could die early, that's what they said in the earlier class.
Yeah, basically.
What are the major retirement vehicles available, and how can you use them to reach your goals? How you to retire your money. So we need to understand them. Number 3, how do you tell if you're on track to reach your retirement goals? So we'll be discussing these things as well. So it's an important topic, and it's one that we need to be aware of. So what factors go into retirement planning? So we talked about some of those. We talked about some of the factors. So what were they? We talked about how long, when you die. What were some of the other ones?
When you retire.
When you retire.
How much you put away.
Yeah, how much you save.
You expected returns before and during retirement?
Yeah. You expect a return before, during,
Your income needs,
income,
health
yeah, and your lifestyle. Yeah, are you going to change your lifestyle when you retire? Because people who are not saving now are telling themselves that their lifestyle will have to change. Other thoughts? How about debt? We saw that 41% people had debt, had credit card, had homeowners debt. And that's going to be tough. Mackenzie?
Healthcare costs.
Healthcare. Other thoughts? How about your home? Anyone heard of people, once they retire, they want to go buy a condo in Park City or someplace like that? You need to take that into account. Now, how much do you owe on your current home? What are you going to be paying on the new one?
Maybe taxes.
Yeah, taxes. Especially if you have a lot of deferred things like 401k, traditional 401k, traditional IRAs, because you have to pay taxes on them. So clearly there's a lot of things that are important. What I'd like to do now is, I'm going to take you through Learning Tool. Learning Tool 6. Each of you are going to have to do this. So can I get a volunteer? And I'll just talk you through it. What did I pick on? Okay. Eric. So, how old are you now, Eric?
27.
27. When you, I'm going to say 25 just so I can do the math, okay? What age are you going to retire?
62.
62? Okay, 27 to 62. How many years is that?
35.
Okay. 35. When you did your investment plan, what was your expected return until retirement? So stage 1. I guess it was somewhere between 6
Probably
and 8.
around 7%.
Okay. What was your estimate for inflation to?
2.5%.
Okay. Now, how long do you think you're going to live?
85.
Okay, so 62 to 85, let's say 87, so 15 years?
25 years.
Or is that
25 years.
25? So my mom passed away at 53, so I've already lived 7 years longer than my mom. My dad passed away at 87. Okay, what was your expected growth rate during retirement? Your expected return? So if you had 7% before, it's probably somewhere between 5.5% to 6%.
Yeah.
5.5%? 6, okay. And your estimated inflation, should we just use your same in retirement, about the same 2.5%? And what's your tax rate? Where are you planning to retire?
Hopefully around, 39%. We can hope.
You know what the state you're planning to retire to? What's your wife say? Where's she from?
Tax free.
You still have federal.
There you go. There.
Let's do 20% just so we're kind of going through here. Okay. expect to be making at retirement? You can see my notes off to the side. What do you expect to make the year you retire after tax in today's dollars?
Probably 200.
Okay, let's keep this down to a little bit. Let's say 80.
I can't be successful. The man's keep me down.
Yeah. And I'm no doubt that you'll be able to do that. But for the cases for those who are watching this on video, we'll probably throw it. Okay, what percent of that do you want to replace? Typically, it's 70 to 80%. So what do you want to replace?
70.
Okay. Although research has said it's closer to 85. Any anticipated expenses that you want to add to this? Like I said, when I did this with my wife, her view was, I want to retire to 100% of your pre-retirement. So we put that in, and she said, I want another $5,000 a year so I can go visit the grandkids.
Probably like remissions, like $20,000 for
This is per year.
say average around $5,000.
Okay, so what this says, you're going to need $61,000 at a 21% tax rate. That is going to be, let's make this bigger. At a 20% tax rate, you're actually going to have to return before tax $76,000. And over the next 35 years, at a 2.5% inflation, you're going to need $180,000 a year to accomplish this goal. Okay. So let's continue on. What do you think you're going to have? Social Security benefits you're going to get?
Well, if I'm really rich, 0, but
Okay, let's put, my guess you'll probably be around 35,000. How about, do you have any defined benefit pension plans?
if I'm a partner, I would, but
Okay.
we'll say no.
Okay? Now what we can do is we can grow Social Security at a different inflation rate. Because normally I think you can grow less than inflation.
Probably lower, probably like 1%.
Okay? So it's 35 now. When you retire, it'll be worth about 50. So you're going to need 180. You have 49, so you're going to need 131,000 or roughly 11,000 a year. You're going to need it for 25 years. At 6% gives you a real return of 3.41%. You need about $2.2 million. So how much do you have in taxable accounts right now? Okay, that's what I thought. You're like everybody else here. So I'm gonna put 1,000 here, and just so you guys can see the math. So we've got 2,035 years at 7%. You'll have about 9,000. Do you own your home?
Nope.
Okay. So now, if you own your home, and here's the mortgage you owe on it. If you're gonna take a new home, that also needs to be negative there, so you can actually get a sense on what you're spending. So he's going to need 2.2. He's going to need it for 35 years at 7%. He's going to need about $16,000 a year. So basically, if he fills his 401k each year, shouldn't be on track to accomplish this goal. So if you could be another one of those people, the 5% of people that fill your retirement plans each year, then you'll be doing well. Let's look and see what the impacts of assumptions do. This is weird. Okay, so let's put it here. Now we'll do split. Okay. So how important is inflation?
Very compounded.
Your return will also adjust with inflation adjusting. You figure a common market premium.
I don't know why I'm having some problems with this. Okay. Okay. You guys will have to take my word that those things are important. but if you go through and play this, each of you are going to have to use that 1 = 6. And I would split the screen and show what happens. What's the impact of inflation? Inflation can have a significant impact. A slight increase from 7 to 7.5% return can have a big impact as well. So the purpose of this tool is helping you to see what are the things that will impact the amount of money that you need in retirement. Okay. What are the principles of successful retirement? And we talk in this class that we all need to understand the principles. What are they? You need to understand them. What should they be? We talked about knowing yourself, knowing your goals, your budget, your risk tolerance. We've also talked about starting down. Those are kind of the easy ones. What are the other principles?
Maybe compensating for the unexpected.
Yeah, plan for the unexpected. Better to plan a little bit higher, find you don't need that amount, than plan lower and find you're going to need more. What are the principles?
Starting soon /
Yeah. Start soon. And for most of you, as soon as you get out of school, you should start. Most of you right now, you're just investing for yourself. You're just trying to survive school, trying to minimize your expenses. You're investing in your most important asset, which is yourself. Other thoughts on principles? Let me just share a few thoughts here. We talked about number 1, understand the retirement vehicles available. Why is it important for us to understand retirement vehicles?
I mean, they can have huge impacts on your taxes.
Yeah, a huge impact because they have specific tax advantages. And you need to understand them because some of them are tax deferred. And what do they magically do? They take your long-term capital gains and what do they create? Ordinary income. Some of them other, you pay the taxes now. And then you don't have to pay any taxes in retirement, and you can actually save more because you pay taxes outside of the investment vehicle. So you need to understand that. Then you need to choose wisely the financial assets. In that little video we saw, what did this guy say? What was his most important thing? He invested. He invested aggressively, but he invested at a risk tolerance he was comfortable with. But you need to understand, invest wisely the financial assets for those investment vehicles. To know the retirement planning steps, develop a good retirement plan. Write it carefully, and probably the most important thing is you need to follow it. And the last one to start today. Any thoughts on steps? So one of the things is know the retirement planning steps. So it's kind of what we just did in this little spreadsheet. What do you want? What will your annual income be at retirement? What will your needs be after inflation? What have you accumulated so far? What are the contributions to your home? Determine how much more you need to save. Can we do that? You're going to have to, because that's part of your plan. Someone tell me what an annuity is. What's an annuity? Yeah. It's a repeating annual payment. Why do retirement, people in retirement, why do they like annuities? Right. So with your example of the dad that lived to 101, if you had an annuity, the nice thing about annuity is as long as you live. So annuities are financial product designed to they accept a certain amount of money, and they guarantee a payment for a certain amount of period. So they can structure many ways. They can be payments for life, or for spouse, or for life or both. Duration of payments. What does this mean? 20 years certain or life. Let's say you have an annuity for your life and you die tomorrow. What happens to all those payments? Do they stop?
Depends on the terms.
Yeah, so you're right, it's just as long as you live. Then that annuity payments stop. What happens if you have 20 years certain or life? You die tomorrow, you get 20 more years. So realize those things. Type of payments, it can be fixed or variable. There's different ways the annuities can be structured. Basically, they're an insurance product. So again, with a lot of insurance products, you need to understand the costs. Basically, it's a time value money calculation. Different types, immediate payments begin now, deferred payments begin at some period in the future, fixed, end of the contract, variable, life, and period certain. How are annuities taxed? Okay, this is the next one. So lump sum for things like that. So I needed to give you that little bit of background because now we're going to talk about the stages of retirement. So too many people think that the stages of retirement are it's just a retirement. They don't think about retirement, what we need to do now, or think about retirement as what happens at the age I retire, or think about retirement as what happens after that. So what we've done is what we need to do is we need to talk about the 3 stages. So the first stage is accumulation. What does that sound like? That's right now. That's between now and when you retire. What is the accumulation stage, and what should we be doing in this stage?
That's where you're putting all the money in and you're waiting for it to grow.
Okay. So it's the period now. So what is your plan for your accumulation stage?
Here. Put in 15%.
Okay. 50%. That's the minimum amount that article stated. But so that's one of those accumulation strategies. 20% of every dollar, 10% of the company 401k, 5 into a taxable account, 5 into children's missions, anything like that. But each of you will need to have strategies for your accumulation stage. Hopefully we've scared you enough to realize that this really does. Okay, the second stage is what are you going to do at the age you retire? So my wife and I are going on a mission in roughly 4 years, so we'll be retired. We'll either retire after we get back from the mission or before. But how are you going to take the distribution of those assets? Is that an important decision? Right now you guys are putting money into your 401ks and your Roths and your IRAs. Do you have to understand, do you have to determine how you're going to take that distribution? And the answer is yes. And so now what you have to do is you have to figure out how are you going to take those distributions? Are you going to create an annuity? Are you going to take it all in a lump sum? Or are you going to have to piece it out over a number of periods? Or you can be able, just whenever you need some, you can take it out. All those are important decisions. Here's a question. If you have something like a traditional 401k or an IRA, do they have what are called required minimum distributions once you receive a certain age? Turn a certain age? The answer is yes. What happens if you don't take out those required minimum distributions? 50% penalty. Is that pretty steep? It is. So is it important to understand these things? And the answer is yes. So what kind of strategies could you have at this stage?
You could maybe take out from traditional or tax deferred accounts. You could take out, a certain amount up to a given marginal tax rate, and then takes the rest out of a Roth account.
Okay. So you could target your tax rate at a specific amount. And this would actually be a distribution strategy instead of a retirement strategy here. But that would be a good one for your distribution side. So you can say, okay, I'm happy to pay 15%, marginal tax rate of 15%. Okay, I figure out, okay, I've got two exemptions. I know what the standard deduction is. I add those together. Then I find my top tier, and I would say, okay, this I could take out up to $40,000, and that'd still be taxed at the 15% tax rate. And anything above that, I take out my Roth. And that way I'm targeting my tax rate in retirement.
If you were to have like a 401k, take it out and then put it into an annuity, would you get taxed twice on that?
You would not. But your 401k, this would be essentially a deferred tax annuity. You would pay taxes on it every time you took money out of the annuity. So here's some ideas for your retirement stage. What I encourage people to do is figure out what's your minimum acceptable level of retirement income. What would you need just to live on? So let's say you're going to need $60,000 to live on. And let's say you know that you're going to have Social Security of $30,000. So then what you do is you put part of your retirement money enough to give you another $30,000 a year. So you're guaranteed as long as you live that $30,000 or that $60,000. It doesn't mean you're going to enjoy it. It doesn't mean you're going to be able to buy a new car every 3 years. But that's enough to live on. Yes?
So when we do our plan, should we assume 30,000?
Pardon me?
Security? Should we assume 30,000 in our plan for Social Security?
Social Security, that's probably a good assumption. 20 to 30. I think that I can actually go through and find out what the average person gets paid. Then you take a percentage of your investment assets at retirement, purchase an immediate annuity, and then you'll have that for the next, until you pass away. So you've got a guaranteed minimum level. How about distribution strategies? Clark's already talked about his, where you target your tax level at a certain amount. You pull out a certain amount out of your deferred tax plans, and then anything above that you pull out of your Roth plans. Let me share. I'm still in the accumulation stage, but I've talked to you about my plans. So what we're doing now, we're not quite living on our BYU salary. We're living on our income, but not our BYU income. But BYU's got this wonderful thing, which is the Roth 401k. So I'm maxing out my Roth 401k, and if you're part of the OGC, the Old Geezers Club, how much can I put in? So you can do 18,000. How much can I do? I can do 24 because it was $6,000 addition. And then what I do is I take money out of my taxable accounts to live on. So what in essence am I doing? I'm transferring taxable money that I have to pay tax on every year into what? Transferred into Roth. And can I save more using the Roth vehicle than I could with a tax deferred account? Here's another idea. When you're on a mission, so my wife and I will be on a mission in 4 years. As soon as my youngest goes into the NPC, so she takes a little longer, we'll be a little bit more. But am I going to be earning W-2 income during that time period? No. And what are my expenses on average? What's the monthly cost for a mission for a married couple? A couple of thousand. I have a brother and his wife, they're serving in Nauvoo right now. So I've got $24,000 in expenses, no income coming in. What would happen if I took, $60,000, $70,000, $60,000 in my traditional 401k, brought that in, paid my expenses on it, and then transferred that over into a Roth? Would I be paying high taxes on it or very low taxes on it? Very low taxes. So we can put strategies like this. So how much can you transfer each year you're on a mission? My wife and I are planning on going on a number of missions. But the point here is there's different strategies that we need to have. And each of you should be thinking now to think about what strategies will you use. And I've just given you a couple of ideas. And I think it's important that we think through these things. Okay, questions on accumulation, retirement, or distribution strategies? Okay. Let's do study. This is something that's very similar to a problem on the next quiz, probably. So you've got a couple, age 35. They reviewed their future retirement income and expense projections. They hope to retire in 25 years. They determined they would have $25,000 in today's dollars, roughly $10,000 for Social Security and $15,000 from their savings. They would actually need $67,500 each year. How much do they need to save annually for 30 years of retirement if they wish to meet their income projection? Again, we'll assume 2% inflation both before and after retirement, 8% return on investments before, and 7% return. Could we do this problem? Is this a problem that you guys will have? It is. Because each of you are going to have to figure out how much you're going to need to save for retirement. And then you're going to have to figure out how are you going to save that amount. So let me take you through the process on doing this type of problem. We could work on it a little bit, but let me just take you through the framework. Number one, I'd like you to draw the diagram. When I do any type of problem like this, I always put here, okay, here's now, here's retirement, and here's when you die. You know, I forgot what the song was. When I was a kid growing up, there was this hard rock song that said, when you die, and then it echoed like 3 or 4 times. But, and you guys aren't old enough to remember that. So the first thing you do is you draw the diagram, and then you calculate the shortfall. How much do you need right now, or how much do you have? Let's say you need $50,000 and you have $30,000. What's your shortfall? 20. So that's calculate your shortfall. The second thing is you inflation adjust the shortfall. You know, this is right now, you need $20,000. At 2% inflation, how much are you going to need in 25 years? It's not $20,000 now, it is significantly more. Not quite double, but it's going to be significantly up there. The third thing we're going to do is calculate your real return. Remember when we talked about real return? It's not 7 minus 2, but it's 1.07 divided by 1.02 minus 1. So you calculate the real return, you figure out how much you're going to need that annuity, and then you're going to, how much you're going to need, and what size of annuity are you going to need to generate that inflation-adjusted shortfall. And then the last thing you do is calculate the period between. So let's take you through this. So the shortfall, so we said their goal was 67.5. They said they had 25 now, so what's their shortfall? Roughly, 42.50. Okay, now what we have to do is now we have to inflation adjust that shortfall. We have to move it forward. Even though it's 42.5 now, it's going to be significantly more in 25 years. So what's that shortfall going to be? What are they going to need in 25 years? It's not 42.5, it is what? Everyone's punching ahead on the PowerPoints. So they're going to need about $70,000. So the third thing we want to do is we're going to calculate a return. So we're going to purchase an annuity. We're assuming we're going to purchase an annuity at that retirement age. We're going to purchase an annuity, and how much are we going to? How much is that annuity going to need to be? Assuming we can make that. First of all, the real return. What's the real return in this case? It's not 5%. It's what? Yeah, 4.9%. So you're going to have to purchase an annuity because we need enough money that we can buy an annuity when we retire that will give us that $70,000 a year for those 30 years. So $70,000 a year for 30 years. Our real return is 4.9%. So we're going to need about $1.1 million. And the question is now, how much do we have to save each month or each year to get that? So we know we're going to need this. This will be our future value. This will be our number of years, high as 8%. And they'll need to save about 15. But you see how the process works? So remember the 3 questions are: number 1, how much are you going to need? Number 2, how do you, what are the vehicles you'll use? The investment assets. And number 3, how do you tell if you're on track? So this person could sit down and they could say if they're saving roughly $16,000 a year, they're on track. Are there other ways of determining if you're on track or not? Wall Street Journal article, Jonathan Clements, 23rd of March 2005. I'd like you to read it. He comes up with a different method. And I'd like you to read this. If you had the PowerPoints, you read it. I didn't include it in the book. Just because but Jonathan is really a very good teacher. He's read a lot of his stuff. Let's give you a couple more minutes to do that. This article is just 2 slides. And then what we'll do is we'll use it to see if a couple's on track or not. About ready to move to the next page? Raise your hand when you're done reading this one. So what's the logic behind what he's saying? Lisa?
Saying not to throw your eggs in the real estate basket because it's really high cost on the industry to try to house the first place on where it's also that. And you can't be certain that it would be good investment.
This was in 2005. No, 2008, 2009. What happened to the real estate market? We used to say, oh, real estate always never goes down. So the point here is he's making, he says, the way you can tell if you're on track, what's his goal? Once you retire, he says, what you should have, how many times your pre-retirement income? 12. 12 times. That's actually higher than some of the other ones. So let's do this. Let's take a look at this couple here. Kevin and Whitney, now they're 45 years old, 20 years into their retirement plan. They've got $115,000 in savings. Doing well, and they still only owe $150,000 on their home. They've only saved 5% a year. The question is, are they on track? See a couple people shaking their heads. And how do we know if they're on track or not? Guess what? Forgot their income.
Or do they have more debt than savings?
Let me see what I assumed on the income there. 82,000 salary. Okay, sorry about this. Okay, thanks for that help. So let's do the calculations. What's their savings to income? What are they at? Savings to income ratio is what? 1.4. What should it be? 3. What's their debt? Yeah, and where should they be? 1. Are they on track? The answer is no. So what should they be doing?
Not living such a mess up.
Yeah, or they need to get back on savings. They may need to downsize. Do people like to downsize? No, it's hard. Do people like to change their lifestyle? But what happens if you don't?
Be worse later on.
Yeah, you're going to be worse later on. So the sooner you can access it, the better. Too much debt. Assets to reduce debt, they may need to downsize. They need to save a larger proportion. Would it be nice to have a tool that we could actually look at where we are now? So Eric was the one who did our discussion before. Eric, can I pick on you some more?
Sure.
So what I did is I took this article and I actually made it so it's dynamic. Let's put in our numbers and our estimates and let's see what we can do. What are some of the decisions we have? We could make a minimum payment on our house and pay it off over 30 years. What happens? We could also decide to pay the house off early too. We can see the implications of that too. So let's start. So age at 25, starting income. What did we say? 80,000 for you. You said 2.5% inflation, and you're going to retire at what age? Can I do 65 just to make the math easier? And let's just say you want to take out 4% a year. 3.6 is kind of that number that. Let's say you're going to save 5%. Return on investment is at 7, 2.5. And what age are you going to purchase the home, Eric?
30.
30, okay. And the cost of the house?
200.
Okay. You're going to have a down payment?
Yep.
Okay. Notice what I've done here too is if you're not saving enough. Let's say if I put a house for $350. Too much debt. So I do put some things in here. So let's say 200,000. How much are you going to put down? 40. So you don't have to pay PMI. Now notice here. Let's say he's saving 5% a year. Based on this, he'll be out of debt by age 60 because it's a 30-year. Now what happens if he wants to take some of that savings money and pay it off? Let's say he's going to pay his house off in 20 years. Notice now, 5.86, you'll have 5.86 times. If you pay it off in 20 years, you'll have 4.49. Why? Oh, mortgage interest rate. Sorry. What did we say? What would you say?
4.75. So call it.
Yeah, let's say 4.8. So now notice, he's paid it off after year 20, but now he's got 4.38. Remember before? 5.86. Why is that? Why if you pay your house off early, will you have less at retirement? Clark?
you're paying off relatively low interest rate debt that's secured, instead of saving for retirement where you, over the long run, might earn a higher return.
Then if this is the case, then why would you ever want to pay your house off?
The market's not guaranteed that return
Yeah.
on your house is guaranteed.
So you pay off the house, that return is guaranteed. But it's important. Now notice, let's just say he pays it off in 20 years. Is Eric going to be ready for retirement at age 65? No. Let's take some things. We can see the schedule. This is what he is. This is what he has here. He'll still have 1.2 million in savings. So let's say what happens if he goes to saves 10%? Now he's at 11.71. What happens if he saves 15%? Now he's at 17.5. Is it important for us to save? Is it important to us to prepare? So, again, the point of this tool, you don't have to print this off, but it's just a little tool to help you think through. There's a lot of issues out there. Again, the people who spend money on these expensive houses right now, the downside is it's not leaving much to save for retirement. And we really need to look in all of those areas. I've lived in, Washington, D.C., the Washington, D.C. area. I've lived in the San Francisco Bay Area too. Is it easy being wise in your choice of houses? No. But is it doable? That usually what you have is you have a little bit more of a commute. But it is doable, and you can. What my wife and I found is if we can plan, what's our maximum commute we want? And you can afford to do that. And we actually went and drove the roads. We drove the roads during rush hour. We figured out what's the maximum amount we wanted to be on the roads. And then if you've got public transportation, that can be good as well. If you lived in Arlington, we take the metro there, so if they're in Washington, D.C. We live in Walnut Creek, and you can take the BART on there. But there are ways of doing this. The Lord's told us that He won't give us any commandment unless He helps us to fulfill it. So it's important for us to understand that. Any questions on what we've done? So my purpose today is really just to scare you into action. Just to let you know that if you do what everybody else does, you'll get what everybody else gets. The question is not, the burden is on the individual. It is easy to live in the present, but an essential component of financial responsibility is to plan for the future. People may have decided their present expenses are such they can't afford a savings plan. The question they should ask is whether they can afford the consequences of not having it. Can you afford the consequences of not having a savings plan? Okay, questions? So like I said today, we're just talking about the basics of retirement. I just want you to, I shouldn't say scare, I should say encourage you to realize the importance of planning for retirement. That's really what I want you to do. I want you to think through the issues. I want you to think through a number of the different issues that we have, because it's not a simple question. Especially when we get into Social Security, you'll see how technical a lot of that stuff is. But we need to think through it. And we need to resolve now that, once we get out of school, some of you are going to med school right now. Once you get out of med school, you'll start saving. And again, from your investment plan, you know what you're going to do. Your first dollar, you know what percent is going to go to which investment fund and things like that too. Okay, let's take a few minutes and think through what are your takeaways from today's discussion. Notice what happens when he saves 20%. encourage you to write these things down. Again, the digital dialogue box is open, so you guys can put your thoughts in there. Okay, what are your takeaways? Adam, let's start with you. What are yours?
I would say that retirement just takes a whole lot more planning than I expected, and I like the learning tool where it shows us to calculate all those different factors, because if you don't do that, you get to retirement, it's already too late. And so I think it's good to do it now so we can start in the accumulation stage.
You guys are so much farther ahead. I speak at different conferences when people in their 50s and 60s have come up and they haven't even saved. And no matter what age you are, you can always start. It's so much better to start. Every single way.
It's also important to make sure you live a standard of living that's not too high, I guess. Because if you buy a house that's too much, maybe you can afford it, but it affects your retirement down the road.
May not be a good idea.
Yeah.
Don't be like we did, we bought too big a house. I mean, we could afford it, but still. Other takeaways?
I haven't started thinking about like my goals and stuff I want to do in retirement, but today, like, taught me that I need to start thinking about that so that I can plan for that now instead of before.
If you don't know your goals in retirement, how are you going to plan for it? So thinking about it now. Is it easy to think about things that far ahead? It's hard to believe, like I said, that's 5 years, 4 years, or thinking like that. I never would have thought I would have been this old. But it's even harder. Lisa, you were going to say something.
I just kind of the same, like, I would love to serve multiple missions at the same level as I do, now. Things that I think about.
Prepare for now, things that you need to think about. Other. Yes.
I like that stat or like the guideline that after retirement you need like 85% of what you had before, because I think we were a little too conservative in trying to figure out how much we need for retirement.
So we've given you some good guidelines here. It's good things to think about. Eric.
My biggest takeaway, first thing I wrote down is what God gives us commandment to occupy the legs. I think you did a good job scaring me.
I should say, I probably should change that to encouraging you.
Yeah. That was a takeaway to that. Okay. Yeah, this is great. But God was good way.
One more. No one else wants to raise their hand? Do I have to call on someone?
I was just thinking, for me personally, I hate being in debt, and so my first inclination after graduating would be to pay off all my debt. And maybe that would distract me from actually saving. And so it helped me to hear that, yes, you should do both. You should be saving as well as paying off your debt.
What I try to do is I try to pay my savings off. Maybe for the first year after that, I put everything in the savings, get my emergency fund first, and pay off my high interest rate stuff. Yeah, you're right. You have to do both. So let me just share 3 of my thoughts. Number 1, if we don't plan for retirement for ourselves, no one else will. Don't expect the government to do a good job for you. Remember, they buy $750 hammers. Number 2, there are various stages of retirement and different things to do. You need to understand, number 1, the principles. You need to understand the process. And you need to understand the things that you need to do to prepare. And number 3, what is the best retirement plan? Best retirement plan is faith in Jesus Christ and obedience to His commandments. Only then and only then can we truly have happiness in this life. Thanks, everyone.